What's up guys, I'm BTC. Get ready for the high-flying fast action of my brand new hero concept, Jules, the Vishkar Recruit. The hero concept and design for Jules was done over 2 months ago. However, I have to wait for the artwork to be completed to make the video, and I also only want to release one a week at most. In fact, I have about 7 other hero concepts right now fully designed, just waiting for the artwork. This is the second time I've had to record the audio for this hero concept because I wanted to release Jules last week, but decided against it because I knew Hero 30 teasers were going to be coming out and I didn't want Jules to get lost in the mix. I kinda regret that. One of the abilities for Jules is nearly identical to something that Baptiste has, and it would have been better if I had gotten my video out first, but you'll have to trust me when I say that Jules was designed without any knowledge of Baptiste quite a while ago. It's purely coincident that both myself and Blizzard created a character with the same ability. Rather than looking at it as if it's a bad thing though, I think it actually makes both of them even cooler because when you see the rest of Jules' abilities, you'll notice that it makes a really cool combo between the two heroes. As always, I want to give a quick thank you to the artist who helps me make these hero concepts, Excited. You can find his link down in the description so you can check out more of his awesome content. If you enjoy the video, please make sure you leave a like and share it, and without further delay, let's go check out Jules, the Vishkar Recruit. For Jules, the hero creation method I chose was to create an interesting ability and build the hero around it. But it's a little more involved than just that, because with Jules, she started out as a potential flying character, but I stumbled across another method of keeping the character high in the air, and I thought that was a lot more interesting, so I decided to go with that. The goals for Jules was to create a new type of projectile attack, which I think is going to be really cool, to give the character high ground mobility similar to flight, and third, to use hard light object creation as the method that all of this stuff happens. It's not listed here, but if there was a fourth, I wanted to make the character story a little more upbeat than some of my previous character stories because up until now, they've been pretty grim. Julia Clark from the American Northeast, better known as Jules to her friends, is what some might refer to as a thrill seeker. At a very young age, she would often give her parents quite a bit of distress as she would climb various parts of furniture and then leap down to stacks of pillows and cushions. After learning to ride a bike, she would construct large ramps made from whatever she could find. Sprains or the occasional broken bone may slow her down for a short amount of time, but before long, she was finding something else dangerous to do. In school, her parents tried their best to get her involved in more traditional sports like soccer, basketball, tennis, or the track team. While she was fairly good at most of these, none of them held much interest to Jules as she quickly found them boring. Going back and forth on a field or running in circles on a track simply was not exciting enough. The discovery of free running quickly put an end to track and the other sports. Running through alleys, climbing up buildings, and jumping from one rooftop to another was just the sort of heart-racing, adrenaline-pumping danger that Jules was looking for. Almost every day, for months and months, she could be found running through the city. Later, she would try her hand at even more dangerous sports like rock climbing, hang gliding, and just about anything that could possibly result in serious injury. One afternoon, while out in the city, she witnessed a commotion among what appeared to be some rather important people from the Vishkar Corporation. An Omnic had grabbed a briefcase from one of the Vishkar and was running down the street right towards her. The Vishkar security were attempting to pursue and almost had the Omnic cornered until it began scaling up the walls of the nearby building. It was clear the Omnic was going to get away, unless someone did something. A smile crossed her face as she began sprinting towards another nearby building. Leaping on top of a fence and then jumping, she grabbed onto the bottom of a fire escape. Jules pulled herself up and sprinted the staircase. When she reached the roof, the Omnic had just finished its own climb of the building it was on. A running start and a leap saw Jules soaring from one building to the next. The Omnic noticed his pursuer and took off in the opposite direction. From rooftop to rooftop, over ventilation ducts and down ladders, Jules kept the pursuit. In a flat-out run, the Omnic would almost certainly win against a human. But in this cityscape obstacle course, years of experience allowed Jules to catch up. A diving grab that saw both of them tumbling on the ground allowed Jules to take away the Vishkar briefcase. Before the Omnic could try to fight Jules for the briefcase, the lagging Vishkar security finally caught up. The Omnic looked at her and said, You don't know who they really are or what they're trying to do." Then he took off running and disappeared around a corner. The Vishkar personnel approached Jules, and she handed the briefcase back to the man who owned it. "That was quite impressive," he said. "A human chasing down an Omnic without the benefit of equipment is something very few can do. My name is Sanjay. Would you happen to be interested in a job?" Jules' primary weapon is the disc launcher. Using the latest in hardlight technology, Jules can create energy discs that fire out at very high velocity and are capable of bouncing off of surfaces. The type is projectile, the damage is 60, it can critical, the rate of fire is 1 per 0.4 seconds, spread angle is pinpoint, projectile speed is 70 meters per second, ammo is 12, reload time is 1.5 seconds, and the effect is that discs can bounce up to 2 times on the map environment. The bouncing function is the same as the biotic orbs that Moira throws. The difference is that the energy discs will be destroyed on the 3rd hit of the environment, or when they connect with an enemy, so they can't bounce off of enemies. Jules' second ability is the Enhanced Jump, and very obviously, this is where Jules' abilities overlap with Batiste. The type is a self-buff, cooldown is 3 seconds, and the distance is 10 meters vertical. This is a fairly straightforward ability, so let me explain how it's different from Batiste. His exo boots have no cooldown, but require you to charge it by crouching, and it takes 1 second to get a full charge. This means his movement is drastically slowed while you're crouching to charge the boots. However, Jules needs a faster movement, so her Enhanced Jump is an instant ability attached to your alternate fire button or your right click on PC. This means that Jules has no startup time with a small recovery, whereas Batiste has a small charge-up time with no recovery. It's kind of funny that Blizzard and I designed nearly the same ability that's only slightly different. But here's where it gets really fun though, because this is how I made a flying character that doesn't actually fly. This is also where Jules and Batiste have some really awesome combo potential. The ability is called Landing Pad. There are 2 types of hardlight constructs. The first are energy-based, like what's used in the weapons and the barriers, and the second are physical constructs that can be used for all sorts of things. In the lore, Vishkar uses this to create buildings, and it's the same sort of thing that Symmetra's teleporter and the sentries are made of. This is what the landing pad is built out of. Because it's a physical object, you cannot attack through it like you would a barrier. If you or your team hit the landing pad, then nothing happens, but the enemy can destroy it by attacking it. This was a necessary balance choice I had to make, because if Jules could attack through it, then it would just function like her own personal barrier shield, and that wasn't what I really wanted. If that was the case, I would have had to drastically lower the health on it, and I didn't want to do that because it would have made it really easy to destroy, and it would have kind of defeated the purpose of having her be in the air on this pad. So because now it's a physical object, in order for Jules to attack the enemy, she has to look over the side, thereby making herself vulnerable to enemy attack. The cooldown begins the moment you activate the ability, which means there's only 2 seconds of downtime if it happens to survive the entire duration. I know the question that's going to come up is, can't you use this in order to keep climbing higher and higher into the sky? But the answer is no. There's an invisible ceiling that will prevent you from going beyond it. Additionally, if you're too close to that invisible ceiling, as soon as you jump, you're just going to hit it and then immediately start to fall. So if you use the landing pad again, you'll probably end up at a lower height than you were the first time you used it. Because of all that, the better strategy would be to simply fall to the ground after the duration expires, and then jump and use another landing pad. The landing pad itself is fairly small, so with one player on it, you have just enough room to strafe a little to the sides to try to avoid incoming attacks. However, if there are 2 people on the platform, your movement is going to be far more restricted. So while it's a cool combo with Batiste, there is a bit of a drawback to it. The next ability is Energy Snare. The disc launcher fires out 2 energy discs that are connected. These can wrap around and tie up an enemy, holding them in place but not disabling their attack. The type is a projectile debuff, the damage is 80, it cannot critical, projectile speed is 100 meters per second, duration is 3 seconds, cooldown is 10 seconds, and the effect is a single target enemy is immobilized. Emphasis on immobilized, this is not a stun. This ability is effectively a ranged, non-permanent version of Junkrat's trap, meaning that they get locked in place, they can still attack and use most abilities that are not movement related. Jules' ultimate is the Leaping Light, a devastating piece of Vishkar technology. Jules will fire out a modified energy disc that bounces between enemies within line of sight. The type is a piercing projectile, damage is 50, projectile speed is 90 meters per second, duration is 6 seconds, and the charge requirement is 1500. The effect is that the projectile bounces from enemies who are in line of sight repeatedly until duration expires or no valid target. Here's how it works. It's a piercing projectile, meaning it can go through barriers, but it can still be deflected or defense matrixed. It has a hitbox probably about the same size as a fire strike. So Jules is going to throw this leaping light out, and if it connects with an enemy, it's going to deal 50 damage. Then it's going to target and lock on to the closest enemy within line of sight. It will then leap towards that enemy and deal another 50 damage. It will then lock on to the next closest target within line of sight, which could possibly be the original target once more. It's gonna keep bouncing back and forth again and again and again to the closest target within line of sight until it either runs out, the 6 seconds past, or until all of the enemies break line of sight with each other. So the fastest way to counter this is for everyone to scatter and to go behind walls and different things. Just go away from the person that has the leaping light on them. And if you break line of sight, it can't jump to you. Once that happens, the ultimate just ends. Which means that if you have a team comp that is very much spread out, like a double sniper or possibly a dive, this ultimate isn't going to do all that much damage, because even if the enemy is within line of sight, there's going to be travel time from one to the next. So you'll have plenty of time to kind of break line of sight, even if a couple of people end up getting hit by it. Where this is going to be absolutely devastating is if you have a whole bunch of people all grouped up in a small area. It is going to bounce around like a pinball machine and just absolutely destroy everybody because they're not going to have enough time to break line of sight. I really like this ultimate because it has some very clear strengths and weaknesses to it. Now, I know some people are going to think that this was specifically made as a goats counter. It wasn't. It just happens to be good against goats, but it's also good against bunker comps and any traditional 2-2-2 that just happens to group together. I really enjoyed making this character, and I think it's one of the most creative that I've designed. I really wish I would have released it last week on schedule like I had planned, because it would have been nice to have this out before Batiste was released, but again, I was concerned that the hero concepts would just get lost among all of the Hero 30 teasers, so it is what it is. Now, it's a lot easier to release these hero concepts during the downtime between official Overwatch hero releases. The good news, though, is that we don't have another official hero for over 3 months, which means that I have plenty of time to put out all of the new hero concepts that I have, and again, I have about 7 of them fully done and designed already. For questions, I decided I'm not going to make a follow-up video, but instead I will answer your questions in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to answer as many of them as I possibly can. But if you don't see a response to your question, it's probably because someone else already asked that same question and I answered it there. Now, if you want to see more hero concepts, there'll be a playlist link on the top right of the screen and in the description of this video. And once more, if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and share it. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.